Don't blink, it's your boy Ink. Welcome to another show. I'm guys are doing well. So having a wonderful 6th March 2025. Today we're doing a couple of videos. Why not? We have the tower, we have a beautiful sunset. Oh, did I just show you a second tower? What are the odds? No way. There's no way we're playing 3 towers right now, right? We are. Today we're gonna do a bunch of videos. All of them, like I told you, this channel is more so about my day-to-day life. It's more so about my day-to-day feels. We're really excited about the work because we just posted a lot of CVs. Right? Now there's pros, there's cons. I want to come here today and talk about why I think I was unhappy at most jobs. There's a couple of reasons. I know this is like kind of like a negative video, but I'm hearing a lot of people say how I hate my job. And then you ask you, what did you hate? And they're saying that I don't know. I want to come on here and say, look, this is why. And I think that this year off of making content and having the best time of my life, right? Is possibly something that taught me so much in a sense of that. So I think most of my life didn't really like myself. See, I had very and I'm not blaming anybody, right? I had very mama bear, papa bear parents. I don't think I was able to develop as I should have. It was this really weird case of they both would leave me alone for a while, and I would develop there. But then I was overparented when I was at evenings. I was like, okay, well, I just had so much liberty, and then I lose liberty, right? So it was a hard time to discover myself, right? And the time I discovered myself was a little bit later in life, right? And that little bit later in life, I think was a great thing because you're thrown into the world. I was literally thrown into the world with the apartment. Okay, well, you got a rent to pay. You need to work. Are you working enough? Are you gonna have to sacrifice some spending so you can pay your rent, right? That was a really cool experience. I think about this one a lot, right? But it's also the place where I learned to be myself the most, right? Now, technically speaking, the learn to be myself wasn't 100% because I was playing video games, I was playing A, B, and C, and I was all that I was doing. And it was kind of cool, but I did shut out the world. I did shut out myself. Instead of doing some self-research or some self-growth or some self-understanding, right? I turned to video games a lot. So again, this lack of growth, right? And why we're talking about that in the video that I said why I didn't like the job that I had, or most of the job that I had, I think super simple. I think in every single relationship, I think if you don't love yourself, right? If you don't love yourself, there's no chance that you're gonna be able to love the other person, right? And I think I was coming in with the mentality of my parents were such hard workers, and that's a fact. It did bother me because my parents were both such hard worker, but they were also both extremely loyal. My mom, she did 31 years at her job. My father did, I want to say, 36 at his job, right? And then it's hard for a kid who's always being told this to go for a job and think about, okay, well, this is gonna be the next 36 years of my life, right? Now, but most of the job that I had, I knew. So the couple of jobs that we had for ourselves, I really like. There was always something wrong though. For example, with the AW, it was really far. They would leave me outside at 12. The first bus was at 3. It's like, holy shit, I have to wait for 3 hours in the streets, right? There was this place also. There was as far as the job goes, it was mostly baking. Baking was a really cool job. It was amazing hours. It was really fulfilling. But you always had this salary and there was no chance to make more money. So imagine thinking that you're gonna do 36 hours, 36 years there at a shitty salary. Like, okay, well, I don't want that, you know. And with a lot of fear also. Like, for example, if you don't love yourself or you don't think that you're enough, you kind of lean on other people. But both of the jobs that I tell you, even IGA to a certain point, IG was really good, but I wasn't getting enough hours, right? IG was really good though. I really like IGA. You tend to lean on other people, but those places have a high turnaround rate. So that means they're firing a lot of people. A lot of people quit. They're hiring a lot of people. So you're constantly trying to lean on new people, but they end up leaving. So like, okay, well, as I lean on myself, but yourself isn't ready to be to lean on yourself yet. I need myself to be there for me, but I cannot be there for me because I'm not ready, kind of shit, which is absolutely insane to believe, right? And then I had the long ass time. I want to say I've had 4 years with the temporary agency, and you'll say what you want about temporary agency. Um, I know they're not the best worker. I know a lot of them are they don't care about the job, but I have to admit that at the end I didn't care about the job either because I was like, dude, I'm constantly being fired. I'm constantly being replaced, right? I get attached to these people, and then I'm left on my own, right? And there's also this very this bad mentality where, well, you're not my boss. My boss is the agency, right? So what you're gonna do, right? Which is stupid, but still. Now, when I had my job, people were nice. The last job that I had, people were nice. The first thing I said, and I mentioned this a lot, was the locker weren't locked. That's a huge thing. Locker weren't locked, which means people trust each other. People have been working there for a while, which is another good reason. If you ask around your new company, how long have you been working here, and most people tell you large amount of time, because they're staying there. They have good condition or they have a good job. So we stay there. And for the first time, I cared about something more than just, well, it's a paycheck, right? And I really think that it's really hard to go in and say, hey, I'm not working for the paycheck because you got bills to pay. The reality is you probably don't want to go to work. You probably want to stay home, watch a movie, chill. I do. I think you do too. But then you have to work and like, oh fuck, I have to pay the bills. But then there's places that you gotta go and like, what I'm excited to do what at the job I am today. I'm excited to go back to work on Monday, right? So yes, so I think this lack of love for myself, this lack of self love, this lack of self confidence, right? Um, there's also the thing that very dependent. For example, I'm not very dependent in love, not very dependent in affection, not very dependent in attention, but very dependent on leadership, which is horrible. Your boss tells you to do this, your boss tells you to do this, the boss tells you to do this, and you do it, which is great. But you need a little bit of leadership. Like, okay, well, a bit of free time. What am I supposed to do? What should I do? What is the next step, right? And constantly being guided is not motivating, but it's something that you need, right? If you're not gonna take the step forward and people take the step forward for you, and you kind of blame them, right? I think that was a big problem. I think I never saw a job as a long-term job before. And before, if you told me I would work at PCT for 8 years, I'd have called you crazy. I'd have been like, no way. I'm gonna do 4 or 5 years, and then I'm gonna find a way to get another job, right? But I did 8 years, and that was great 8 years. Yes, there were some hard moments, but there were some of great moments. It was a fun job, you know. And there's day where, of course, I didn't want to go to work, which I think is pretty freaking normal. There's day where I would have been anywhere but at work, which I also think is pretty fucking normal. But all in all, I think, all in all, I do think that this job was a really good job, and I think you have to have like a really good job. For example, right? And I always talk about relationship when I talk about work because it is a relationship. You're going to a place where you have to spend more time than your own wife, than your kid, you know. And you like, it's not a relationship; it's a job. No, it's a relationship, right? It's like you had 4 or 5 girlfriend or 6 girlfriend, and they all treated you like shit, all treated you like garbage. And then you meet this one girl who treats you kind of right. Like, wow, this is what I deserve, right? So you acknowledge that a job can be fulfilling. I think a lot of us have, again, this mentality of, I'm just here for the paycheck. And that's a good mentality because you are here for the paycheck, but it's also a bad mentality because you don't want to be here. If you didn't have bill to pay, you wouldn't have this motivation. You didn't have this purpose, right? So I think this is why I didn't like the other job. For example, I went to the job fair. And I was really excited to work. I was really, really, really excited to work. But I started looking around, and I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. I went to the job fair. There's places where I was tempted, but I was like, would you do 7 years there? Would you do 10 years there? Would you do 15 years there? Would you do 20 years there? And there's a lot of places where I was like, no, fuck no, you know. And it's knowing what you want also. Knowing what you want. I think that's a big part of it. They keep going back to the, oh, I'm here for a pay. But what do you want? You want to pay your bills. You want to do a good job. You want to possibly get a raise. You want to possibly get better at the job that you're doing? Is there aspiration to what you're doing? Is there aspiration to what you want to become? Is there aspiration to what you can become? Or this is just a gig, you know? And there's nothing wrong with it being just a gig, but at the same time, would you? I think if you had this mentality, I think it's very short term. I think long term you'll hate yourself for being like, um, you'll hate yourself for being like, yo, this is I didn't take this seriously. And at the same time, you've been working there for like, for example, the same 20 years, right? My ex job was a job of meritism. So what happened was the better you worked, the more cash you get, the more raise of a raise you get, right? Now it was a system that was flawed because some people were more important than others. Some people had more responsibility than others. Then technically speaking, they would have a better salary than others. But then if you don't give others the opportunity to prove themselves, then you're never gonna get them responsibility. And if you never give them responsibility, you'll never get them the raise that they possibly deserve, right? So that was a bit of a flawed system. But at the same time, it was a great system because if you wanted more money, prove yourself, right? Prove yourself. A system based on meritism is very flawed because not everybody's allowed to have the same opportunity. But at the same time, it's actually really, really well. It's actually really, really good because yes, I wasn't allowed to have those possibilities, but when the change came, did I actually step forward and say, "Hey, I'm gonna take responsibility." I don't think we do that enough, right? There was these guys at my job, and it's so stupid, but that really opened my eyes, you know. I was there for a paycheck. I'll be completely honest, financial job at the beginning, of course, and then these guys, they were eating sunflower seed, and they had the habit of leaving the sunflower shell on the floor. Now, technically speaking, it's not a big deal. You can have a couple of days of eating shell. You leaving them on the floor. You leave it on the floor, and then say, okay, well, there's a kind of a mess here. I should pass the broom. Pass the broom. No hurt, no harm's done. But then the boss said, you guys have to start treating this like your home. You're here every single day, 8 hours a day, right? This is your second home, and that's when I realized like this is my home. You know, I fucking love these guys. These are guys of my family. You know, and yeah, I think this is pretty important. I also think that this is a problem of society. For example, I do find that us Canadian, who are seemingly super nice, I do feel like this is a very individualistic society where you don't know your neighbors, you don't know who you're working with really. You're cordial, but you don't give a fuck about other people. You know, it's a system very, very prone on me, myself, and I. And I do get that, but I don't think teamwork. And I think a lot of companies, like I look at years ago, right? My father, my mom, they had so many team building activity, right? And that was important. That was really important because you build a team. And then when all else fell, you care about the other people that you work with, right? You care about the other people that you work with more than you care about the job itself, which is the case with the last job that I had, right? This is why we stayed for 8 years, even though I was depressed. Now there was like a little bit of a what should we call it? A little bit of a situation. You guys know in May 2023 we did the depression. So we had depression, and then with the depression I've had a choice. Am I coming back? And then the thought of the company closing in a year, because we knew 2 years before. We knew 2 years before when we were closing. And it was I wouldn't say a blessing per se, but it was something that really came to term. I'm like, okay, well, I just did depression because of the job. Am I really willing to go back? And then I thought about a year. I'm like, okay, well, let's end it in a positive note. Think about it. A year is not that much. A year is about 2,200 hours. So you do 4, right? 4 weeks a month. You do times 12, right? You do 40 hours a week. So you do 160 hours a month. You do time 10. That's 1,600, and then you had 320. That's 1,900. That's 1,920, right? It's not that much hours. It's a crazy amount of hours, but it's not that much. So that's pretty much it. So I think this is why the job is. I had issues loving the job that I had before. Now this video is actually quite important because it does mention why those job I could have been better. I could have but it's not important. For example, right? And I know this is horrible, but the relationship that you had in the past, did they really matter, or the relationship that you have right now is important, right? Now, ultimately speaking, some of the relationship you'll have kids. Now, of course, relationships are important, but the job that I had, maybe the job that I had the best job ever, the dream job, but I didn't even realize it, right? It's all a question of perception. It's all a question of the right place at the right time. When you understand that, it's crazy. When your life will change. When you understand that, it's all a question of when, and if it is the right when or where. It's crazy. It's crazy. However, this is the end of the video. Love you guys. Take it easy. Thanks for watching. Peace.